Logan was the big boss of the northern Myanmar compound. I had spent years meticulously planning my escape, even faking my own death, just to finally get away from him. But who would have thought that my boyfriend, Tyler, would turn around and drag me on an overseas trip? The moment the plane landed, he pulled me onto a bus. As I looked at the increasingly familiar route outside the window, my whole body began to tremble uncontrollably. Sensing my unease, Tyler finally dropped his act. His face twisted into a grim expression as he said he was going to sell me to an illegal factory, and the so-called big boss he mentioned was none other than my own brother. I had gone through so much to escape, yet I still ended up right back here. Emma, didn't you say you loved me? Tyler asked. I owe a huge gambling debt. Help me, will you? Thinking about what would happen to him if he ended up in my brother's hands, my voice shook as I pleaded. Please, just take me back. I'll work and earn money for you for the rest of my life. Tyler's expression turned cold in an instant. You think I can wait that long? If I don't pay up in 3 days, who knows what they'll do to me? He let out a dry laugh. Besides, I've been taking care of you for 2 years. Isn't it about time you paid me back? With interest. The moment he called me useless, my body trembled even harder. Back in the compound, one of my brother's subordinates had once mocked me for being weak, too afraid to even kill an ant. When my brother found out, he buried that man alive, poured honey over him, and left him to be devoured by a swarm of ants. If my brother ever heard Tyler calling me useless, I couldn't even begin to imagine what he would do. Fear spread through my chest. Looking at the man I had loved for 2 years, tears streamed down my face as I asked, Didn't you say we would build a home together? You told me I was your most beloved family. Tyler gently caressed my cheek, but his words were chilling. Yeah, and isn't family supposed to help each other? Emma, just help me out. I bit my lip and shook my head desperately, but his eyes flashed with something sinister. You are the most beautiful girlfriend I've ever had. If it weren't for the money, I wouldn't even want to sell you. Suddenly, his expression darkened. You are mine. I can't let any other man touch you. With that, he took out a rope and tied my hands behind my back. Then, he pulled out a blade, pressing it against my face. Emma, you don't want to be humiliated, do you? Let me help you. The cold blade gleamed under the dim light, and then, searing pain exploded across my cheek. No, I screamed in despair. Logan's favorite thing about me was my face. When I was a child, a servant had accidentally burned me. When my brother found out that there was an 80% chance of permanent scarring, he threw the servant into a crocodile pit. Then, he threatened the doctor. Either fix my face, or he'd peel off the doctor's own skin. He once said my face resembled our late mother's, and that he would never allow it to be damaged. And now, Tyler had slashed my face. If my brother found out, I didn't dare think further. Ignoring the pain, I begged, please, my face cannot be ruined. But Tyler only sneered. I already asked Leo. He said factory women don't need to be pretty, only physically functional. Leo, could it be that newcomer? Leonard, from 4 years ago? Before I could process that thought, Tyler dragged the knife across my skin again. The pain was so excruciating that I couldn't even form words. I know Leo, I gasped. Take me to him, please. As long as Leonard sees me, he'll definitely send me back. Tyler hesitated for a moment. Then his expression twisted in rage, and he pressed the blade deeper. You bitch. You never truly loved me. You actually want to climb up to Leo. His voice was laced with venom. I'll ruin your face. Let's see how you seduce another man now. The unbearable pain consumed me, and I finally blacked out. When I woke up again, I found myself dumped at the factory gates. Tyler stood nearby, talking to another man. My throat was dry and raw as I rasped. Leo. Leonard turned, his eyes narrowing as he looked down at me. How does she know my name? Tyler's face stiffened. He quickly stomped on my mouth. She must have overheard my call in the car, he explained. Don't worry, even if she knows, it's useless now. Leonard took a slow drag from his cigarette, considering the situation. Is that so? He exhaled a smoke ring and eyed Tyler. You wouldn't dare try anything funny, would you? How many have you brought so far? Tyler ground his heel into my lips before jogging over to light Leonard's cigarette. 7, he answered. Don't worry. I know the rules. This girl has no family, no background. She was a virgin when she got with me. Leonard crouched down, blowing a smoke ring in my face, then carefully studied me. A sliver of hope reignited in my heart. He knew me. As long as he recognized me, he would definitely force Tyler to take me back. After all, if my brother found out that his own men had kidnapped me, they would all be dead. Leo, what the hell happened to her face? Leonard muttered in disgust, standing up and looking away from me. She looks awful. My heart sank to rock bottom. He didn't recognize me. Had Tyler damaged my face so badly that I was completely unrecognizable? The thought sent a wave of despair crashing over me. I wanted to scream, to cry out, but my throat felt as if it were stuffed with cotton. This woman is too restless, Tyler explained casually. She wanted to use her looks to escape, so I ruined her face. Doesn't matter anyway. Right. He crouched down beside me, his voice dropping to a mocking whisper. See that? Give up already. Leo says you're ugly. Summoning all my strength, I forced out a few words through clenched teeth. You're all going to die. Leonard's eyebrows shot up in amusement. He kicked Tyler aside and squatted in front of me, chuckling. Did this little bitch just curse us to die? His eerie smile sent chills down my spine. I shook my head frantically. No. I tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. What I wanted to say was, if you don't let me go, you will die. Suddenly, Leonard grabbed my jaw and pried my mouth open. Before I could react, he shoved the burning tip of his cigarette onto my tongue. A scorching pain shot through my mouth as the stench of burnt flesh filled the air. My agonized screams echoed in the night. Ugly bitch. How dare you threaten us when you're already at death's door? Leonard sneered before spitting on my face. Tyler, laughing cruelly, picked up a wooden stick from the ground and jabbed it into my mouth. Stupid whore. How dare you offend Leo? Let's hear you scream now. I felt like I was suffocating. Tears streamed down my face like a flood. Am I really going to die here? Enough. A deep voice finally cut through the torment. Teach her a lesson, but don't kill her. Nobody. No money. It was another man. One of Leonard's subordinates. Tyler immediately dropped the bloodstained stick. Got it. So, can we go sign the contract and get the money now? 2 men grabbed me by the arms and dragged me toward the factory. Just then, a sleek black sedan approached from the other direction. My heart nearly stopped. It was my brother's car. Summoning every last ounce of strength, I thrashed wildly, desperately trying to throw myself under the car's wheels. The vehicle screeched to a halt. The back door opened, and Logan stepped out. His sharp gaze swept over me as his brows furrowed in a deep frown. Logan, it's me. I screamed silently, my lips moving, begging for him to recognize me. But before I could make another move, Leonard yanked me up by my collar and delivered a brutal slap across my face. You filthy bitch. How dare you run into our boss? He snarled. The force of his hit sent me crashing to the ground. A metallic taste flooded my mouth as I coughed up blood, some of it splattering onto Logan's expensive leather shoes. Leonard's expression twisted in horror. He dropped to his knees immediately, frantically wiping the stain from Logan's shoes. I'm so sorry, boss. She's new, causing trouble already. Let me clean this up for you. Seeing this, Tyler also scrambled to his knees, groveling to help clean Logan's shoes. Logan's narrowed gaze shifted toward me. Oh, is this the new one you just brought in? Yeah. Leonard answered quickly. This little bitch wouldn't behave, so we messed up her face to avoid trouble. She even cursed us just now. Logan chuckled, intrigued. Well, that's a first. Someone daring to talk back here. His voice was calm, but there was an unmistakable edge to it. She's a college student. Tyler blurted out, eager to please. Just graduated this year. Top of her class. 2. Logan seemed thoughtful. He glanced at me again, then let out a quiet sigh. If Emma were still alive, she'd be around this age too, probably just finishing college. The moment I heard my name, a desperate cry tore from my throat. Logan, it's me. I'm Emma. Shut up. A heavy boot crashed into my ribs, sending me sprawling onto the pavement. My vision blurred as searing pain ripped through my body. A fresh wave of agony surged through me as the wounds on my face split open, blood trickling down my chin. My tongue and mouth had been so brutally burned that I could barely form words anymore. The only sounds I could make were broken, pitiful sobs. Logan frowned slightly, crouching down to take a closer look at me. My heart pounded wildly with hope. I tried to open my mouth, to call out to him again. But before I could, a sharp tickle ran up my throat, a cough racked my body, and a mouthful of blood splattered onto Logan's face. Leonard and Tyler went pale. They both froze, their expressions turning to sheer terror. They scrambled to pull out tissues, frantically wiping Logan's shoes. Meanwhile, Leonard dragged me toward a filthy wastewater barrel near the factory entrance. Without warning, he grabbed me by the collar and shoved me in. The putrid water surged into my mouth and nose, burning my lungs as I struggled. A suffocating pain spread through my chest, my body instinctively convulsing. Just as I thought I was about to drown, Leonard yanked me up by my hair, lifting my head above the water. "You think you have multiple lives to waste? Huh?" he sneered. "Daring to disrespect our boss?" His grip tightened. "I'll just kill you today as an apology to him." Before I could even take a full breath, he shoved me under again. Again and again. He repeated the process, forcing me to the brink of suffocation before dragging me back up, only to push me down once more. My body convulsed violently, my throat raw, unable to produce even the faintest scream. When he finally let go, I collapsed onto the ground, completely drained. Leonard straightened up, wiped his hands on his pants, and jogged toward Logan, bowing slightly. "Boss, this girl dared to crash into you. She's useless now. What do you want to do with her?" He smirked. "How about we pull out all her fingernails first, then treat her to some bubble tea?" A chill ran through me. Bubble tea. I had seen them use that torture on other girls before. I never imagined that the next time I heard it mentioned, it would be my turn. Well, maybe this was justice. Logan had committed countless crimes. Maybe it wasn't unfair for karma to catch up to me like this. I closed my eyes, silently accepting my fate. At least, soon, I would see Mom and Dad again. For some reason, that thought brought me a strange sense of peace. "Wait, is she smiling?" Logan's voice carried a trace of hesitation. "What the hell?" Leonard sounded incredulous. "Boss, this bitch still has the guts to smile." He grabbed me by the hair again, lifting my soaked face to examine me. The filthy water had washed away the dirt, exposing my disfigured features beneath. Logan's expression shifted slightly, his brows furrowing. Where did all those scars come from? Through the reflection in his eyes, I finally saw myself clearly. My once smooth skin was now covered in deep, jagged scars, crisscrossing my face like grotesque worm-like ridges. I had actually thought Logan might recognize me, but looking at myself now, even I barely recognized my own face. Leonard quickly explained. "Her boyfriend did it. Said she was acting up, trying to seduce the driver and escape." Tyler, who had been standing by quietly, nodded in agreement. "Yeah, this whore was way too flirty. If we had kept her looking like that, she'd have caused trouble sooner or later." Logan hummed in thought, nodding slightly. "I see. That's a shame. Could have sold her to a wine estate. Those pay a lot more." A flash of regret crossed Tyler's face. "Damn, that's my fault. I'll know better next time. I'll only go for the hot ones." Leonard let out an exaggerated sigh. "Yeah, you've been bringing in nothing but low-quality girls. This one was a rare gem, and you had to go and ruin her." He turned to Tyler. "You said she was flirty. How bad was it? Show me." Tyler grinned sheepishly. "Ah, my phone was confiscated earlier, so I don't have any pictures. But I still have her ID and diploma on me. You can check those out." Leonard's interest piqued immediately. "Oh, let me see." Tyler eagerly pulled out my identification and degree certificate. Leonard snatched them up, scanning the details with a low whistle. "Damn, you've got good taste. This one would have been perfect for the job." Meanwhile, Logan had just finished washing his hands and approached with a towel. He casually glanced at the documents in Leonard's hands. "Nice name." Leonard seized the opportunity to flatter him. "Boss, this whore could never compare to you. You're a dragon in the sky. She's just a mere sparrow." You know what they say. How can a sparrow understand the ambitions of a swan? Logan chuckled, amused by his theatrics. He tossed the towel at Leonard's face. A high school dropout quoting philosophy now? Leonard peeled the towel off his face and laughed along. Boss, you're one of the very few college graduates in this entire compound, Leonard remarked, smirking. I still remember what you used to teach the girls. If you want to succeed, you must study hard. The moment he mentioned my name, Logan's expression darkened. He took my bachelor's degree certificate from Tyler's hands, his gaze fixed on the embossed gold lettering. Letting out a slow sigh, he murmured, if Emma were still alive, she'd be around 22 now. She'd be graduating from college too. As he spoke, he flipped open the diploma. The next second, his face twisted in shock. His eyes locked onto the photo. His voice trembled as he whispered, Emma. He lifted his head, staring at Leonard and Tyler. Tyler quickly spoke up. Yeah, this bitch told me she was an orphan when we were together. Said she picked her own name. Logan hesitated, his eyes flickering with an unreadable emotion. An orphan? Yeah. Tyler nodded. She told me she was like a lone goose that had left the flock, determined to fly toward the future by herself. Leonard snorted at that. A lone goose leaving the flock? Sounds more like a dead bird waiting to rot. What a fitting name. Logan's grip tightened around my diploma, his fingertips turning white as though he might tear a hole through the paper. Sensing that something was off, Tyler nudged Leonard anxiously. Leo, let's go finalize the transaction. I need to pay off my debt tomorrow. Leonard shot him a warning glance but forced a grin as he turned back to Logan. Boss, I'll go handle the paperwork for the handover now. But Logan ignored him. Instead, he personally reached down and pulled me up from the ground. His hands were steady, yet there was an almost imperceptible tremor in his grip. Gently, he lifted his palm to touch my face. The moment his fingers brushed against my wounds, a sharp sting shot through me, and I instinctively flinched, recoiling from his touch. His hand froze midair. Leonard's face contorted in anger. You filthy bitch. My boss is giving you respect, and you dare flinch away. He rolled up his sleeves, storming toward me. Before he could lay a hand on me, Logan's palm lashed out, striking him so hard that Leonard staggered back in shock. Did I tell you to touch her? Logan's voice was cold as ice. Leonard clutched his stinging cheek, his face filled with disbelief. Boss, I'm sorry. Logan ignored him. He turned back to me, gripping my wrist firmly. Without a word, he yanked me closer and pulled at my collar. Leonard's eyes flickered with amusement. Ah, so that's what you wanted. Huh. He chuckled, nodding approvingly. Yeah, she's got a nice body. But isn't it a bit inconvenient to do that kind of thing here? Logan's eyes, however, weren't on my body. He was staring at the tattoo on my collarbone. He remained completely silent. Tyler, growing restless, pulled Leonard aside and whispered urgently. Wait, is your boss into that kind of thing? She's already ugly as hell. How could he still? His voice trailed off, filled with disbelief. Leonard smacked him on the head. Shut up. Boss makes the rules here. If you don't want to die, keep your mouth shut. Tyler clenched his jaw but looked back toward Logan hesitantly, seeing his darkened expression. He shrank back slightly before forcing a grin. Of course, since I already sold her to you. She's yours now, boss. You can do whatever you want with her. Logan reached out, gently wiping away the tears pooling at the corner of my eyes. His touch was unexpectedly soft. His voice, however, was firm. Of course. She's mine. Tyler finally exhaled in relief and shot Leonard a glance. Leonard immediately understood and turned back to Logan with a smile. Boss, if there's nothing else, I'll take him to handle the paperwork. Logan let out a low, mocking chuckle. You want to sell my person to me? And still expect to get paid? Tyler's face paled instantly. He grabbed Leonard's arm and muttered under his breath. What the hell does that mean? Is he backing out? Taking her and not paying us? Leonard's brows furrowed in confusion. That can't be. The boss never does things like that. Something seemed to click in Leonard's mind. He quickly turned to Logan, forcing a smile. Boss, we've already worked together 7 or 8 times. We'll keep doing business in the future too. Maybe you should, pay him. Logan ignored him. Instead, he adjusted his grip, lifting me into his arms effortlessly. His voice was icy as he spoke. You should worry about yourself first. If anything happens to him, all of you will die. Leaning against Logan's chest, I felt his warmth, a rare source of strength in my broken body. Logan, I whispered weakly. His face was filled with nothing but pain. He pressed a kiss to my forehead, his touch gentle, as if afraid I would shatter completely. Before he could say anything, Tyler suddenly charged forward, his face contorted in rage. You filthy whore. Even in this state, you're still trying to seduce men. His voice was sharp, desperate. Boss, don't let her fool you. She's lying. He reached out to grab me, but before he could lay a finger on me, Logan's driver swiftly caught his wrist, twisting it with a sickening crack. Logan's voice was calm but filled with an unmistakable warning. I'm here. Don't be afraid. Then, his gaze darkened as he looked at me. Did he do this to you? His grip on me tightened slightly. His jaw clenched, and I could hear the grinding of his teeth. My little phoenix. My Emma. The moment I heard him say my name, my heart, which had been on the verge of despair, finally settled. He recognized me. Relief washed over me, but my body had already reached its limit. My vision blurred, dark spots dancing in my sight. You idiot, Logan murmured, his voice trembling. You left me behind, only to end up hurt like this. His arms held me closer, as if trying to shield me from all the pain I had already endured. I told you before, no one in this world loves you as much as I do. No one. So why did you leave me? Warm tears dripped onto my face, stinging my open wounds, but the pain barely registered. I'm sorry, I whispered weakly, barely able to get the words out. That moment, Leonard finally realized what was happening. His face drained of color, and he stumbled backward, collapsing onto the floor. No. This isn't possible. His voice cracked with disbelief. Boss, is she really Miss Emma? His hands trembled as he pointed at me. That's impossible. She died 4 years ago. His expression twisted in desperation. Boss, she must be using some kind of trick to confuse you. You can't believe her. Logan didn't even look at him. Instead, he lifted his foot and kicked Leonard in the mouth. Say one more word, and I'll have your tongue cut out. Blood filled Leonard's mouth as he clutched his face in terror, his wide eyes filled with panic. The phoenix tattoo on my sister's chest. Logan's voice was cold, unwavering. My mother inked it herself. It's one of a kind. There's no mistake. Leonard shuddered at Logan's words. His entire body trembled as if all the strength had left him. You stupid girl. Logan sighed, his voice filled with a strange mix of anger and affection. I told you before. You're too beautiful for this world. It's full of monsters. They would only try to hurt you. His arms tightened around me, his voice dropping to a whisper. Why didn't you listen to me? Why didn't you stay by my side? With that, Logan carried me inside, his footsteps steady, his arms wrapped protectively around me. Leonard remained on the ground, completely defeated. He didn't dare make a sound, not even as Logan laid me gently onto a bed in his office. The moment Logan released me, Leonard collapsed to his knees beside the bed. He bowed so deeply that his forehead slammed against the floor with a sickening thud, again and again, until his skin split open, blood smearing onto the tiles. Boss, I'm sorry, he wailed, his voice shaking. Logan barely spared him a glance. Instead, he waved a hand toward his men. Go find a doctor. Leonard immediately scrambled to his feet, not even bothering to wipe the blood off his face. He turned and bolted from the room, desperate to follow orders. Tyler, however, remained frozen in place, his face pale and drenched in cold sweat. The moment he caught Logan's gaze, his knees buckled, and he fell forward in terror. I didn't know she was your sister, Tyler stammered, his voice breaking as he crawled forward, trembling. Boss, I swear, I didn't know. It was a misunderstanding. A terrible misunderstanding. Logan simply raised a finger to his lips. Sure, he whispered, his tone eerily calm. Don't wake her up. Tyler immediately clamped his mouth shut, fear paralyzing him. Logan gave a subtle nod to the two bodyguards standing by the door. Without a word, they stepped forward, grabbing Tyler by both arms and dragging him out. He struggled at first, but the moment they reached the hallway, he stopped resisting. He knew, if he made a single sound, if he so much as woke me up, Logan would cut out his tongue himself. The last thing I heard before sleep consumed me was the faint, terrified sound of Tyler's muffled cries as he was dragged away. Logan seemed to sink into his own memories, murmuring to himself, "My sister always loved those cheesy romance dramas growing up. She was obsessed with finding a boyfriend just like the ones on TV." He chuckled darkly. She never understood that the more beautiful something is, the more dangerous it can be. Just like her own face. The moment she left my protection, she was bound to be deceived, to be hurt. His fingers tapped lightly against his knee as he exhaled. But she never listened to me. Tell me, was I wrong? He nudged Tyler's chin up with the tip of his shoe. Tyler, sniveling and sobbing, hurriedly nodded. No, boss, you're absolutely right. She was too pretty, too naive. That's why she ended up with someone like me. A piece of trash. Logan's expression remained unreadable. She was with you for 2 years. Did it never cross your mind to protect her? Tyler let out a broken sob, his tears mixing with the dirt on his face. I did. I really did love her, boss. His voice cracked as he scrambled to defend himself. For 2 years. We were happy together. I swear. But I had no choice. I owed a massive debt. She didn't want to see me get hurt. So she offered to help pay it back in her own way. He clutched his chest, desperately searching for sympathy. Boss, I swear, I love her. Please believe me. Logan narrowed his eyes, his expression unreadable. Sensing a sliver of hesitation, Tyler quickly pressed on. I really love her, boss. When you pulled at her clothes earlier, I even tried to stop you. I couldn't just stand by and let you. Before he could finish, Leonard stormed back into the room with the doctor. Stop your damn whining, Leonard snapped, kicking Tyler aside. Boss, we should take care of Miss Emma first. I had the doctor bring extra painkillers. I was afraid she'd be in too much pain. Logan gave a small nod, motioning for the doctor to begin. Leonard finally exhaled in relief and quickly ushered the doctor forward. I was only half conscious when I felt something cold press against my chest. I'll do it, Logan said abruptly, brushing the doctor's hand aside. He pressed the stethoscope against my skin himself. The doctor listened carefully, his expression gradually turning grim. Removing the stethoscope, he sighed. Miss Emma is suffering from extreme shock, exhaustion, and severe dehydration. Her heart rate is highly unstable, and her pulse is frighteningly weak. Her lips are dry and cracked. She likely hasn't had anything to eat or drink in a long time. Hearing this, Logan tensed. Then what should we do? She needs N4 immediately, the doctor said. If we don't stabilize her soon. Do it now, Logan ordered, cutting him off. A sharp sting pricked my hand as the cold liquid began flowing into my veins. Feeling me flinch, Logan immediately turned to his driver. Go find a heating pad. Place it under her foreline. She's always been afraid of the cold. A warm spoon forced its way between my lips, sending a trickle of sweet liquid down my throat. I instinctively clenched my jaw at the pain. The doctor sighed. Her mouth is in terrible condition. The burns and wounds inside are severe. Hearing this, Logan's face filled with worry. Will there be any permanent damage? The doctor hesitated. Her external injuries and oral wounds should heal with proper care in a month or 2. He trailed off, visibly debating whether to say more. But what? Logan's voice sharpened. Speak. The doctor swallowed hard. The wounds on Miss Emma's face were made with excessive force, and they're quite deep. The scabs had just begun forming, but they were torn open again, causing new bleeding. His voice grew softer as he continued. Even if they heal, I'm afraid there will be scarring. Silence fell over the room. The doctor visibly trembled. He knew just how much Logan valued my face. Whoever did this, he muttered, was clearly trying to destroy her completely. It's pure evil. A terrifying glint flickered in Logan's eyes. Use the best medicine available. Treat her. The doctor hurriedly nodded. Yes, of course. I'll go find the necessary treatments right away. Grabbing his medical kit, he practically sprinted out of the room. Leonard, who had been silent, suddenly collapsed onto the floor. He had been trembling ever since the doctor revealed the severity of my injuries. Who did this to her? Logan's voice was deathly calm, but every word sent a chill down the spine of everyone in the room. Leonard and Tyler shook like leaves. It was him. Tyler suddenly shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at Leonard. He did it. Outside the compound. He burned her mouth with a cigarette. She cried. She begged him to stop, but he shoved it in anyway. Leonard's eyes widened in terror. Bullshit. That's not true. Bullshit. Leonard spat, his voice hoarse with panic. It was you. Before he could finish, Tyler lunged at him, swinging a metal rod straight into his mouth. Tyler had been waiting for the perfect moment. The instant Leonard let his guard down, he grabbed a nearby iron rod and used it as a weapon. The impact split Leonard's lip open, swelling it instantly. Blood dribbled down his chin as he clutched his mouth in agony. But Tyler wasn't done. He struck again, harder this time, jabbing the rod into Leonard's ribs until the man crumpled onto the ground, groaning in pain. Only then did Tyler finally let go of the blood-stained rod and crawl toward Logan, wailing, "Boss!" He didn't just burn her mouth. Outside the compound, he used a wooden stick to tear up her tongue, her whole mouth. The evidence is still outside in the grass. Logan nodded slightly, signaling one of his bodyguards. Within minutes, they returned, carrying a bloodied wooden stick, its jagged end covered in shredded tissue and dried blood. Logan took it from them, his fingers brushing against the rough wood. His expression darkened as he traced the stains. His voice was quiet, but it carried an unmistakable weight. My Emma. She was raised like a princess. How could she possibly endure something like this? Leonard, still kneeling on the ground, tried to speak, to defend himself, but all that came out were garbled, incoherent sounds. Logan's patience snapped. His voice was sharp as a blade. Leonard, you've been with me for 4 years. Are you really telling me you couldn't recognize my sister? Leonard frantically shook his head, his tears flying everywhere as he desperately tried to deny it. But deep down, he knew. Logan wasn't just holding him responsible for what happened tonight. He was holding him responsible for my entire disfigurement. Because earlier, Leonard himself had told Logan that they ruined my face to avoid trouble. Now, he realized too late. Those words had sealed his fate. Regret filled his eyes as he gestured toward the desk, pointing at the paper and pen, silently begging Logan for a chance to explain. His hands came together in a pleading motion, trembling as he bowed his head. For a moment, seemed Logan might consider it. But before Leonard could even reach for the pen, Tyler picked up the bloody iron rod again and brought it down, this time, slamming it onto Leonard's hands. A sickening crack echoed through the room. Leonard let out a strangled scream, his fingers twisting unnaturally as he collapsed. Clutching his ruined hands, Tyler's face twisted in rage, his breathing ragged. It's all your fault. You did this to her. I'm going to make you pay. He raised the rod again, bringing it down over and over until Leonard's hands were nothing more than mangled flesh and shattered bones. The once feared man lay motionless, his body convulsing before he finally passed out from the pain. But Tyler wasn't satisfied. His chest heaved, his eyes bloodshot. Boss, we haven't even started making him suffer yet. Look at what he did to Emma. We should carve up his face, cut him up until he's unrecognizable. Logan had been watching him the whole time, an amused yet cold glint in his eyes. He slowly reached for a cigarette, rolling it between his fingers. Seeing his chance, Tyler quickly tossed the bloodied rod aside and scrambled for his lighter. Boss, let me light that for you. A sharp slap cut him off. Logan struck him so hard that Tyler staggered, nearly falling onto Leonard's body. You don't see my sister lying there injured? Logan's voice was dangerously low. Who the hell told you to light a cigarette for me? Tyler, face burning from the hit, instantly bowed his head, nodding and apologizing repeatedly. I'm sorry, boss. I wasn't thinking. Logan exhaled slowly, his fingers toying with the unlit cigarette. You're right about one thing, though. He does deserve to die. His gaze flickered toward his men. Cut off his hands and feet, then shove some firecrackers into his mouth. He likes putting cigarettes in other people's mouths. Let's see how he likes the taste. Leonard, unconscious, was dragged away like a pile of discarded trash. Tyler finally let out a breath of relief. He wiped his forehead nervously before carefully sidling up to Logan, his voice ingratiating. Boss, I've been thinking. That guy who kept setting me up to lose money at the casino. He must have been working with Leonard. That's why I ended up in so much debt and had to keep doing business with him. Logan raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Tyler's eyes gleamed with anticipation. It makes sense, right? Leonard used to run a casino back home. He must have been planning this from the start. He tricked me into selling my girlfriend, your sister. I didn't know. Boss, if I had known, I never would have done it. He turned toward me, kneeling beside the bed, his voice thick with fake remorse. Emma, I know your dream has always been to marry me. That's why I've already prepared a ring to propose to you. Once you get better, let's get married. Okay, I'll spend the rest of my life taking care of you, no matter what you look like. As he spoke, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a diamond ring. For the first time, Logan's expression wavered slightly. He slowly stood up. His gaze locked onto the ring in Tyler's hand. You're really planning to propose? Tyler's face lit up with sincerity. Yes, boss. I love her. I truly do. I want to take care of her forever. For a moment, it almost seemed like Logan was considering it. Then, without warning, he swung his leg forward, kicking Tyler square in the face. Who the fuck do you think you are? Boss, Emma and I truly love each other. Tyler pleaded desperately. Logan let out a cold chuckle and snatched the diamond ring from his hand. He held it up to the light, examining it with an expression of disdain. You think this pathetic little rock is worthy of my sister? That moment, I stirred awake. The second I saw the ring in Logan's hand, memories of everything that had happened flooded back, and a pained wail escaped my lips. Hearing me, Logan immediately rushed to my side, grasping my hand gently. Emma, my dear sister, how are you feeling? His voice was filled with concern. With great difficulty, I forced myself to speak. My gaze fell on the ring as I whispered hoarsely. Logan, I bought that ring with my own money. I worked and saved for it. I swallowed hard. He said he had no money for a ring. Logan's entire demeanor changed. His face darkened with pure rage. That bastard couldn't even afford a ring? Without hesitation, he slapped Tyler so hard that a loud crack echoed through the room. Tyler's once smug face swelled up instantly, his head snapping to the side. Emma, didn't you say we'd share everything? Tyler whimpered, ignoring the pain as he desperately crawled toward me. I was deceived by Leonard. Please, forgive me. I love you. I really love you. I stared at him, my voice weak but firm. Logan. He's the one who ruined my face. The room fell into a suffocating silence. Logan, who had always been unnervingly possessive over my appearance, turned eerily still. He had been obsessed with my face because it resembled our mother's. He had once destroyed an entire beehive simply because a single bee had stung me. And now, the person he cherished most had been permanently scarred. A chilling smile crept onto his lips. I'll skin you alive and feed your face to the dogs. He motioned to his men, who immediately pinned Tyler to the ground. Then, without hesitation, Logan pulled out a knife and drove the blade straight into Tyler's cheek. But he didn't just cut. He stabbed deep into the flesh before slowly peeling the skin upward. Inch by inch, Tyler let out a blood-curdling scream before passing out from the unbearable pain. Logan abruptly stopped, as if realizing something. He tilted his head, then smirked. No, this is too easy for him. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Didn't you guys recently develop a new method to deal with traitors? The person on the other end hesitated. Yes, boss, but we haven't tested it yet. We're not sure if it's lethal. You know, these girls are valuable. If they die, it's a big loss. Logan sneered, glancing at Tyler's unconscious body. Use him as your test subject. If he dies, who cares? Tyler, as if sensing the impending doom, suddenly snapped awake. He struggled frantically as Logan's men lifted him like a lifeless pig. His voice cracked in terror. "No, no. Where are you taking me? Emma, save me." That moment, one of Logan's bodyguards entered the room. "Boss, Leonard is dead." Logan knelt beside me, his grip tightening around my hand. "Did you hear that? Sister? Everyone who hurt you will die." Then, he turned to the bodyguard and ordered, "Tell me exactly how he died. Make sure my sister is satisfied." And so, I listened in eerie silence as the bodyguard detailed Leonard's gruesome end. He had been tortured extensively before being thrown into a rusted metal drum filled with filthy wastewater. The chemicals burned his skin, making him howl in agony. Seizing the opportunity, Logan's men pried his mouth open and stuffed it with firecrackers. A few loud explosions later, Leonard's mangled body was dragged out, waiting for Logan's final orders. "Feed him to the dogs," Logan said indifferently. The bodyguard obeyed, leaving me feeling nauseous. My stomach churned, and bile rose in my throat. I gagged, retching up bitter acid. Logan immediately panicked. "Get the doctor. Now." The doctor rushed back in and quickly checked my pulse. His brows furrowed, his voice filled with hesitation. "Miss Emma. She seems to be." He trailed off, his face filled with uncertainty. "She seems to be what?" Logan snapped impatiently. The doctor swallowed hard. "Miss Emma might be pregnant." The room fell into a dead silence. Tyler, who had been struggling for his life just moments ago, lit up with joy. He wrenched himself free from the men restraining him and crawled toward my bedside, his bloodied face gleaming with excitement. "Emma, did you hear that? We're having a baby." His voice cracked with emotion. He turned to Logan, his expression desperate yet triumphant. "Boss, Emma's carrying my child. The baby needs a father." He thought this child would be his salvation. What he failed to realize was that Logan had never been sane. Logan had once told me that because I inherited our mother's beauty, he refused to let any man defile me. He had treated me like a doll, a princess locked in a glass case. He had once said, "No man deserves you. I will take care of you forever." He had already been furious when Tyler proposed. Now, upon hearing that I was carrying his child, Logan's entire body trembled with rage. His voice dropped to a chilling whisper. "What did you just say?" Tyler was too blinded by his own delusions to notice the danger. He clung onto my trembling hand, his grip desperate. "Emma, I love you. You love me too, right? We'll raise this child together. We'll be a family." The moment those words left his lips, Logan's pupils dilated with pure madness. A burning fire raged in his eyes, as if he were about to tear Tyler apart limb by limb. "Family? My ass." Logan's voice was laced with pure venom. "Somebody, cut off his damn dick. Who the hell does he think he is? Getting my sister pregnant?" Tyler's face turned deathly pale. He struggled to turn toward me, his eyes pleading for mercy. But before he could say a word, someone stuffed a rag into his mouth, and right in front of me, they carried out his punishment. Logan barely spared him a glance. "Well, his name suits him." He let out a cold, mocking laugh. "Take him to try out your new method." Tyler had already lost consciousness, yet they still dragged him away like a lifeless corpse. Half an hour later, blood-curdling screams echoed throughout the factory. I didn't know what they had done to him until much later. They said he was literally scared to death. When Logan's men came back to report, he was calmly feeding me porridge, as if nothing had happened. "Think, that was too easy for him," Logan muttered. "Had I known, I wouldn't have let them give him any painkillers. I wanted him to suffer longer. What a coward." His voice was eerily casual as he gave his next command. "Cut his body into pieces and bury him separately. Let him be a eunuch in his next life." Hearing that, my stomach churned violently. I gagged, the porridge I had just swallowed forcing its way back up. That night, I developed a high fever. In my dreams, I saw my parents. They had been good people all their lives. So why had they given birth to a monster like Logan? 17 years ago, when I was 3, our parents took us back home for New Year's. But they were tricked into coming here. They refused to surrender and were executed. leaving behind only me and my 8-year-old brother. From that day on, Logan did everything he could to protect me. He obeyed the people in power, enduring unimaginable torment to gain their trust. Eventually, they let him leave and study abroad. But I was his weakness, the chain they used to control him. They never feared that he would turn against them because they held me in their grasp. "Emma, your brother has missed you all these years," someone once told me. "Have they treated you well?" When Logan returned, the first thing he did was look for me. And when he found out I had nearly been violated, he went insane. Using his ruthlessness and intellect, he clawed his way to the top, crushing everyone who had ever hurt us. 3 years later, on my 18th birthday, Logan wrapped an arm around me and whispered a promise. "I'll give you a life free of worries. A happy life." But I knew that so-called happy life was built on the blood and bones of the innocent. I didn't want it. I feared it. I begged him to take me away. That was the first time Logan ever hit me. He had slapped me across the face and said, "The outside world isn't as wonderful as you think. You have books to read, a comfortable life. Why would you want to leave?" That night, I swallowed a bottle of poison. Logan nearly went mad. He drove like a maniac, rushing me to the largest hospital in the city to have my stomach pumped. In his desperation, he got into a car accident and was taken to the emergency room along with me. By some miracle, I survived. And while Logan was still unconscious, I escaped. When he woke up, he nearly destroyed the hospital. The doctors had no choice but to tell him I didn't survive. But Logan didn't believe them. He hadn't seen my body, and that alone convinced him I was still alive. However, his rampage had drawn the attention of the police, and he had no choice but to flee that very night. In my fever dream, I heard Logan's voice murmuring beside me. He said he had never stopped looking for me. He said he thanked the heavens for bringing me back to him. But Logan, our sins are far too deep. Tears slipped from my closed eyes. A gentle hand wiped them away. "Take good care of her from now on," Logan said to someone. When I woke up, I learned that he had hired a professional caretaker to cook for me and nurse me back to health. But there was something off about her. She always put something in my soup late at night. And every time, she would lock herself in my bathroom to make phone calls. One day, I secretly poured the soup down the drain. And for the first time, I heard her whispering into the phone. "Rest assured," she said, "everything is going according to plan." She was determined to complete his mission, to save the innocent lives trapped here. I smiled. I finally had a way to atone for my sins. So, I began to open up to the caretaker, slowly trying to gain her trust. First, she didn't believe a word I said. But 9 months later, on the day I was about to give birth, I told her I had a way to help her escape with me. If Logan's men came after us, she could use me as leverage until reinforcements arrived. Then, under her watchful gaze, I raised my hand and slammed it down onto my swollen belly. The moment Logan heard I was in labor, he dropped everything and rushed to my side. When the doctor shook his head and said there was a high risk to my life, Logan clenched his jaw, his hands trembling, and insisted on driving me to the hospital himself. After what happened last time, after I had escaped from the hospital years ago, Logan wasn't going to take any chances. This time, he stayed by my side, never leaving for even a second. He stood there, watching every move the doctors made as they operated on me. And when the baby was finally born, he grabbed my hand tightly, his voice filled with relief. "Emma, you're okay. Thank God. You're okay." But in his overwhelming relief, he didn't notice that someone had taken the baby away. That night, I wailed and screamed, threatening to kill myself if I didn't get my child back. Helpless against my breakdown, Logan had no choice but to send his men to interrogate the doctors and search for the baby. When he heard that my emotional state was unstable, that I might actually attempt suicide, he finally agreed to let the caretaker stay by my side. But the moment she got close to me, she pressed a knife to my throat. Logan froze. He couldn't afford to make a reckless move. Blood trickled down my neck where the blade had cut too deep. And then, outside, the sound of police sirens filled the air. Logan finally exhaled, his grip loosening slightly. "Emma, don't be afraid. You'll be okay. The police are here." I smiled, but my tears wouldn't stop falling. Logan. I whispered, my voice hoarse. I've always been terrified of the things you've done. I haven't had a single night of peaceful sleep because of them. My lips trembled as I continued. Even if we die, do you really think we have the right to see Mom and Dad again? His face went deathly pale. He didn't fight back as they handcuffed him, didn't resist as they dragged him away. And as he turned back to look at me one last time, I grabbed the knife and plunged it straight into my own heart. A female officer screamed, "No, don't do this. We're about to save them. You haven't seen it yet." I smiled and shook my head. "I don't deserve to see it," I whispered, because my hands were stained with sin just as much as his.